Y'all remember Katie Montgomery? I haven't actually ever spoken to her. We're hoping that she comes back to the Transatlantic Call-In Show at some point. Until then, catch me on the Transatlantic Call-In Show most Thursdays at 2 p.m. on the line. Anyway, she's still posting on Twitter, even though she's not on the line right now, which is cool. So let's get in on this because y'all are very familiar, I'm sure, with this whole kerfuffle about Imane Khelif. We've talked about it on this channel. Uh, the concept of like a gender test for athletes that are otherwise, as far as we can tell, they're totally cisgender. The pictures of them as a little kid are of them as the same gender. They go through like the sports, and it's typically the questions here are about cis females who, admittedly, the classic feminism arc here is a woman carving her way in a male dominated industry like sports. And yeah, so it's goofy, the idea that, oh, you're less of a woman if you're strong. That's like a classic traditional idea, and yet we have like modern day trans exclusionary feminists attacking women for being not womanly enough, like athletic women for not being womanly enough because they're too strong, they're too whatever. Apparently, this has been going on since the 60s, at least. Because Katie posted about this woman, and I'm not going to be able to say her name correctly because I don't know how to speak Polish, but this woman was called Ewa Kłobukowska. Ewa Kłobukowska. She was a Polish sprinter who set multiple world records back in the 1960s. And there she is. Honestly, she kind of looks like Imane. She's got the strong nose. She's got like a nice strong jaw. Like, I can see this person being somewhat gender ambiguous from this one picture at this one angle. Like, I can kind of see a transvestigator going nuts over this person. Apparently, she failed a gender test, quote unquote, and was subsequently banned and had all her records stripped. The papers at the time called her a man. And again, she set multiple world records. And then the following year, after her banning, she gave birth to a son. And she never received an apology. At the time, quote, gender tests would have been a genital inspection, which are as degrading and ineffective as you might imagine. I'm just quoting Katie here. And then also a chromosome test. She, quote, passed the chromosome test part the year prior, leading some people to believe that she has genetic mosaicism, which is like some of her cells are XX, but other ones have different chromosomal whatever. Like, I think genetic mosaicism happens when, like, you absorb your opposite sex twin in vitro. I don't really know, if I'm being completely honest. But so she passed the tests one year, and then she, quote, failed the tests the next year. Someone in the comments says if she had been tested a year later, she likely would have retained her medals due to improvements in testing and scientific understanding. Like, they had genetic tests back then, but they weren't very good. So it's possible that it was just that the genetic tests were shit and that they just pulled up a false result. Yeah, this is old school transvestigation. So she had to have her genitals inspected and a chromosome test. Mitternacht and I are here to ask you to hit like on the video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe. Click the bell if you feel like it. You don't have to, though. Feel free to check out the other links in the description because I sell merch like this cute tank top. I'm running a GoFundMe to try to move 2,000 miles across the country to a place where I have rights. And I have a Patreon he's smashing his face against my face. From the stress and public humiliation involved with this, she attempted suicide. And then Katie, points out none of this hysteria is new. It's the same hateful insanity as before, and that there is no gender/sex test you could possibly perform since that's not how biology works. And something that a lot of people are claiming in response is that chromosome tests have gotten better since the 60s, which is true, but that's missing the point. The issue here isn't that the result of the test was wrong, it's that chromosome tests don't justify bans regardless. Right. And I'm personally of the opinion that sports should just be desegregated anyway, because women and men can be competitive with each other. We are barely sexually dimorphic. Testosterone levels do not accurately predict sports performance. Some of the highest performing male athletes have like the lowest testosterone. The boxer tested that way too, didn't she? So we don't actually have any evidence that Imane Khelif failed a gender test, quote unquote. Because the thing is that she was boxing in a Russian league. And so, like, one year she performed fine. She passed whatever test, whatever. And she beat the Russian favorite. And then suddenly the following year she's failing gender tests. And they haven't disclosed what that is, what that means. So we do not have any evidence that she has higher than average testosterone. We do not have any evidence that she has a chromosomal anomaly. The IBA, which is, again, the Russian boxing league in question here, has been discredited by the Olympic Committee because they're corrupt. And, like, so basically, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that they said that she failed a gender test, but she actually didn't. Yeah, the test results read, "Trust me, bro." Exactly. Multiple IBA officials have tried to say what the sex tests were, and their accounts contradict each other. Right. So, yeah, we don't have any evidence that she has a weird chromosome, whatever. And, like, why should it matter anyway? Are the only people allowed to participate in sports, like, ones who, like, every athlete, are we really going to set a standard where every athlete has to do a hormone test and a chromosome test and a genital inspection and an ultrasound to make sure what's going on in there? Like, do we need to see your birth certificate and to, like, meet the doctor who brought you into the world? Like, what are the standards here? It's just nonsensical. What if the Olympic athlete is a little bit of a genetic freak who's predisposed to be good at their sport? What would we do? Yeah, there's no conversation about stripping Michael Phelps of his medals, even though he's a genetic freak whose arms are longer than average and doesn't produce the same amount of lactic acid as everybody else, so he doesn't get fatigued the same way normal people do. Unironically, if she'd been white, nobody would have acted this way. Well, to be fair, Katie Ledecky, is that her name? Katie, the swimmer. She's white and American, and people were transvestigating her at the 2020 Olympics. So to be fair, you know, yes, there is a heavy racial component, but I'm just saying, like, it's not impossible for this to happen to white women. But, like, yeah, Caster Semenya, and I think there were 2 other black female athletes who also had to submit to genetic testing and have been limited in their ability to perform various sports. Imane competed in the 2020 Olympics, you know, the one where everyone was talking about the trans stuff a lot, and she lost in the quarterfinals, so no one cared. I mean, this is the thing. Katie Ledecky, thank you. This is the thing, is that trans athletes and intersex athletes and even cis women athletes, it's okay for them to lose. It's not okay for them to win. And I'm not saying that as my official position, but, like, this is functionally the position of the average person, I guess, is that, like, the average transphobe or whatever, like, people are not really bothered by trans athletes unless they win. Or, like, they don't seem outraged about it unless they win. It's like, okay, but so yeah, like, what are you saying? Trans people can compete as long as they never win? As soon as they win, it's an unfair advantage? Just because someone has an advantage doesn't mean it's unfair, and that's assuming that trans people have an advantage, which they don't. Or at least no more of an advantage than a cis woman with PCOS who had a higher level of testosterone in puberty, because that seems to be the thing that everybody backs off of. Everybody's like, oh yeah, you can let trans athletes in as long as they didn't go through testosterone puberty, or, like, trans female athletes, specifically trans women. But it's like, okay, yeah, so are you going to start testing female athletes for PCOS? And, like, if you're a high school athlete, do you have to get your testosterone level checked and, like, that's part of your records that are required to get you into the professional sports? I'm proposing an immediate ban on gender until we can figure out what the hell is going on. No more gender for anyone. True. Ban all gender. Thank you so much to all my patrons, but especially Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rovag, Jack, Amanda B., Michelle Frateroli, Michelle Winter, Wellington Marcus, Danielle McDonald, DZXN, Ella V. Nobody, Pastel Infinity, Suzanne Maynard, Nova, Desi Quiche, Celeste, Athiette, Jamie Jam, Sojo, Bean, Kevin Young, Mr. Atheist, Liam Hodgson, Elizabeth Bartell, and Jericho.